Hello, Mike.
Hello.
All right.
Good
Thanks for
morning.
coming by. How you doing?
Pretty good. A little
Pretty.
tired already.
Yeah.
My day starts pretty early, so
Yeah, it sounded like it. 4 a.m. or so, if I remember
yep.
correctly.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
about
that
the
is
best
early.
time for me. Yeah,
I figure
for
I'll get you.
studying. What's that?
I figure I'd grab you at medium time.
Yeah, it's about medium. Yeah, I'm about halfway down to idiot level, which will happen around 4 p.m. I think. So anyway,
Get the work done, the important work done before you get there.
yep. So we're live. Are we
Yes.
live?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry. Yeah,
okay.
we're live. I,
Yeah.
so.
What do you want to know about atheism or
Nothing.
me?
Nothing in
Or me?
particular about atheism. I wouldn't say, but I enjoy the discussions. Like the first one we had, where we get into knowledge, where we're sourcing our knowledge from, what we think we know, and how we know it, and
Yep.
why we know it, and so forth.
Yeah, that's always interesting. But
You can
anything
talk
you want to
about it.
know? Anything you want to know about my background, so you have some understanding where I'm coming from. This
Not not particularly,
it
but if you'd
makes a
like to see,
difference.
what's that?
It makes a difference. So
I
I, I
agree with
I've
background does make a difference. Yeah.
yeah, I've never been a Christian. I was introduced to it when I was like 6 to 8 years old, and I pretty much rejected it about 2 years after we rejected Santa Claus. So I've been lifelong agnostic and then atheist. It's kind of where I came up. So I have little understanding of why anybody would adopt that worldview. So
Well, you said atheist and agnostic.
well, I guess I would have to call myself an agnostic because I didn't really think about it until probably, well, I don't know. I guess I thought about it when I was a teenager a little bit when I went over to Buddhism, secular Buddhism, but I never really thought about it all that much or all that thoroughly until about maybe 2005, 2006. And then I said I adopted the label atheist after that. So so I guess I would be an agnostic up to that point because I didn't have any reason not to believe in God. I didn't have any reason to believe in God. So I was kind of, in the middle. So
Well, all right. If you, I'm looking at it like if you take on the title atheist, it's a
yeah.
it's a claim in the positive that
Yep.
you do not think God exists. So
Right.
that's it's quite a claim, I would say. It takes
Yeah,
some.
my reason for that is it just sets Christians back on their heels. But the reason for that is that I don't believe a mind is possible without a human organism, without a body at all. That you have to have body in the world in order to have mind. And I don't believe that there's any possibility of a man-like mind, super mind, right? Basically, that your God has the characteristics of it thinks like a man, right? It has a will and has memory and ideas and does things, right? Is that correct, or am I misinterpreting what you think God is?
Well, for the purposes of where we are in the discussion, what I think God is doesn't really have anything to do with how you're describing your experience, but
Well, it defines my atheism. My idea of what God is going to define my idea of what my atheism is, right?
right.
And if I, and if you have a different view of God, well, I might say, hey, that's something I can agree with. So I don't know what you
Yeah.
think God is. So do you
Well,
think God has will? That
well,
God wills things?
well. Hold on a sec, because I did want to get a clarification from you about the mind that you brought up.
Okay, but you, yeah.
What is that? What do you think that is?
Oh, just real common loose understanding of that we have of what mind is. Basically that I'm sitting here and I'm experiencing you, and I'm seeing things, and I'm thinking, and I remember things, and all of that. Just that whole colloquial meaning of mind, basically.
Yeah, because when you say how we understand it, this is a philosophical concept that goes back thousands of years that hasn't really been established or settled what the mind actually is,
Oh no,
especially
there's a
not.
whole lot of philosophers. Because they frequently talk out of their asses, haven't settled on anything about the mind. I mean, so all we've got is that colloquial understanding that you and I have a mind. You have a mind, right? You believe you have a mind that
What
you're
do you mean
thinking.
that that's all we have?
Okay, are you going to answer any of my questions?
Yeah, but
Do,
your claims are already begging questions.
yeah, but you're not answering any questions. But if we're going to have a dialogue, I got to kind of go back and forth here. So you
So I'm trying
believe
to
you have.
clarify what a mind is, right?
Right, and
In order to answer your question.
you believe you have a mind, like this colloquial mind that you're experiencing things and that you can remember. You believe that, right?
Well, I think we have different definitions of mind, so I'm trying to clarify. Yes, I believe I have a mind.
Okay.
I think I don't think that it's a material that I can explain it in a material sense, and I do understand
Well,
your background a little bit that you're a physicalist, so it would be interesting
yeah.
to hear how you explain what
Well,
that is.
how would you explain it if you can't explain it materially? How would you explain your mind
Well,
or
it's some sort
describe
of
your
it's my understanding is some sort of phenomenon,
some sort of
but
phenomenon?
right.
Phenomenon is phenomenal is used interchangeably with mind, so that's kind of circular. So that doesn't really tell me anything about what you think it is.
Well, right. Since you brought the word into the conversation, and I was trying to get clarification on it, it would be
The
interesting.
colloquial, the meaning that we'd agree with if we weren't Christians or atheists, or we weren't philosophers, and we met in a coffee shop and said, "Hey, I was thinking about stuff, and in my mind, I imagined something." That's the meaning that I would attach to it, right? What I experience,
So,
kind of my
mind is experience.
stream. Yeah, what I'm experiencing right now is mind. That's what I would call mind.
Is it physical?
Oh, is it? I don't know. Is it?
Well, as a physicalist, doesn't it need to be attached to your worldview and to be coherent?
Well, saying it is physical is kind of problematic in that we have this colloquial definition of what's happening to us, and to say I think it's all atoms in motion. If that's the question you have, yes, I believe that, but I don't know what you believe it is. If you don't believe it's that, I don't know what you're appealing to for the existence of this thing you call mind, or how it works. I mean, if you look at a table, right, the table's physical, right?
It appears to be physical. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
we can feel it, use our sense data, but there's also the idea that when we look at it on an atomic level, that it seems to be quite empty as well. Correct?
Well, it's not dense, but there are particles that we can identify, and yeah, it's a combination of energy and matter, kind of condensed energy, whatever. If you want to go down to the quantum level, you can look at it that way. But normally, we deal with material things every day, and and you see it, and it's material, and your mind has a relationship to that material. So I guess I would describe it as the relationship I have as as a constructed self with those material things. That would be mind. And I think it's all physical. It's all the brain. It's all brain, body, and world. I don't equate it to the brain. I equate it to brain, body, and world all at the same time. It isn't just brain. Brains wouldn't do anything by themselves. So.
Okay, so an interaction you'd say between the mind. There's an interaction between the brain, the body, and you said the world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And of course, all those things are physical. So hence physicalism. But the relationship I have as a part of that physicalism with that other physical stuff, the relationship I have with an organism basically constructs this thing that I would colloquially refer to as mind. Okay, so it's a relationship, kind of. I have a relationship.
Is a relationship a physical thing?
Yes. Yeah, it's one thing interacting with another causally, so it's definitely physical.
Okay, because you got some causality in there as well. So
yeah, I don't really buy causality. I prefer conjunction to causality. But anyway, there's me in the universe. I'm an organism. There's the table over here. There's some light coming from the star, and it shines on the table and interacts with me, and it's just all a bunch of physical interaction. And if I try to step outside of that, outside of my mind, and look at it, that's all I'm ever going to see is, the physical objectively, right? If I try to be objective.
If you said if you go outside, all you see is the physical.
If I go outside, if I try to go outside of that relationship, outside of myself, and make some sort of objective understanding of reality, right? I have to see myself as an organism in the world. And that's kind of the base of my physicality, is seeing myself as an organism in the world. And I am not in the world. I'm a part of the world. I mean, there's no line that you cross where the world ceases to be and I start to be. So I don't really have a self. Secular Buddhist, right? But anyway, is this the direction that you wanted to go?
Yeah. It's fine. It's interesting. I'm trying to listen to what you're telling me about the mind being a interaction between brain, body, and world, and how that's really describing anything in particular, and how it's describing something physical. You're taking physical things and making a description and calling it mind. That's interesting. I'm trying to make sense out of that when I think about it.
Yeah, as we go through life, as we go through this timeline, right, as we proceed, we end up, with this kind of stream of experience, which we happen to have the ability to reconstruct in memory, which is kind of an odd thing about us. Very confusing for us that we have memory. And we're just experiencing stuff just the way everything else is experiencing stuff, right?
Well, how do you have access to know that what you're experiencing is what everything else is experiencing? Tell me more about that interaction.
That comes from just basically going out to materialism and methodological naturalism and science and trying to understand myself objectively. And I realize that I'm an organism in the world. There are other organisms in the world, like my raccoons, that, also very much check all the boxes that they're having an experience. And they have memory too, because they come back every night begging for food.
So you're saying there's an objective reality, or a reality that exists objectively?
I don't like the subjective objective split, because I don't really believe in the subjective part of that. There's just I model everything as space-time, Cartesian matter in space-time. That's what I've come to as the foundation of my epistemology, basically, that I believe in the physical nature of the universe as Cartesian space-time. So
I think, therefore I am is your epistemological starting point, you might say.
No, I hate that one. I absolutely hate Descartes.
I just thought you said you used the Cartesian model.
No, Cartesian coordinate system. That's different than the Cartesian model. Cartesian XY, like what you draw on graph paper. Yeah, that sort of thing. So I think that you don't think. I think that's an approximation, but I think it works very well for us. So.
Yeah, you do or you don't think there's an objective reality, a reality that exists separate from mind?
I wouldn't call it an objective reality. I call it reality. I'm a thing in the world experiencing reality.
So
And
you and I can have an experience and give different descriptions of that experience, and it's the same thing.
pretty much, yeah. I would guess that because we're the same kind of organism, that we pretty much feel the same things when we see the color pink, or when we drop a rock on our foot. We pretty much agree to that. I
Well,
think that's what enables us to be talking at all right now.
yeah.
If it weren't for that commonality.
So you get two people having an experience, but when they disagree on that experience, that's where we get into those lines of potential subjectivity and objectivity, right?
Yeah, well, everybody is a different organism. You have a different accumulation of memories that you've come up with. You're gonna, like, if you and I are standing opposite each other looking at a rock, we're obviously going to have a different perspective on it, right? And we have
Yeah,
different
but that's
memories
right.
of
That's right.
rocks.
So I guess it sort of begs the question: is there a right answer there, or do you think that we can both be right in our description, or we're both wrong, or nobody's right, or nobody's
Oh yeah,
wrong?
to be our. I mean, if the description differs, the perspective differs. That's not a problem for physicalism at all. You're going to have a different. You're going to generate a different description linguistically.
So if I say the rock is exactly the opposite of what you're explaining it, you're gonna rely on some physical test to try to argue with me that it's not, or you're gonna throw it at me and hit me with it and say it exists in the way that you think it does, and so forth.
Yeah, or ask you to kick it like what was his name, Johnson or whatever, kick the rock. I refute you thus. You know that guy?
Johnson.
I thought it was Johnson. I don't know. Maybe it was something else, but I refute you thus, and he kicks the rock, refuting, I don't know, some idealist.
Yeah. Well, maybe we're not getting anywhere with this. What if I asked you what your starting point was?
I don't have like the starting point, this foundational thing. Like when you talk about starting points, if you walk into a room with a huge complex of machinery and things in it, right, and you're trying to figure out overall what's going on in that room, you could pick any number of starting points as long as everything coheres from where you start to where you end up. And slowly you're going to sketch in knowledge of what is going on in the world. And
Right.
that's what
I,
you did. And that's what each of us did when we were infants, when we popped out our mamas. We basically started to construct that room and try to figure out what the hell's going on. What is going on?
assuming that we didn't have something behind that was guiding us. Because what I'm saying is, if you walk into a room and we say, "What's your starting point?" Sure, we can make observations and inferences about the room and the physicality and so forth. But what I'm asking you is more a worldview related, like as in, what's your starting point, epistemologically speaking, your starting point for knowledge. That's why I asked about Descartes. I think, therefore I am. You said you didn't like that. Do you have a similar starting point, or something that would be in exchange for that idea?
My starting point is when I was a zygote, when the first cells split. That was my starting point. And from there to now, or there to say when I was 8 years old, that's when all of that epistemology laid itself in, right? And so I was interacting with the world. I was interacting with reality and constructing what I needed to construct in order to leave one room and go into another room, and eventually how to drive a car and all of that stuff. That was my starting point when I was a zygote. So I don't understand why I would need to take my worldview and then take it as a starting point. But now that I've arrived at a worldview, now I can take that worldview and I can test it on anything that happens to me. And I can ask, like, okay, does my worldview account for this? Is it compatible with this? But my worldview is certainly not my starting point.
Your worldview is not your starting point, because it
No.
shifts around all the time, right?
It's my ending point. It's basically the worldview that I've acquired at age 72 is a result of my entire life of learning, testing, running into walls, things like that.
Well, you learn new things daily, though. so it's not complete,
I
right?
do.
It's
No,
always being
never.
expanded.
And it's always provisional.
But what I'm getting at more so is your starting point. A lot of people would say they start with classical laws of logic, identity, non-contradiction, right? Like they in everything they do, they utilize that. That's fundamental for them. And I would assume that you use that as well in everything that you do. Is that correct?
Your average guy that gets up and goes to work in a body shop, he uses the laws of logic to
Of
ground his
course.
worldview.
Of course.
Well, reason, I
How would
guess.
he escape it?
But if you asked him about laws of logic, I think he'd look at you kind of funny, like a lot of them anyway, like the ones that aren't really educated.
Right. He wouldn't necessarily understand the language, but if I sat down with him for a few minutes and talk to him about identity and non-contradiction, he might say, "Oh, well, yeah, of course. I think that the table is the table, and that the table
Yeah,
can't be the table."
reason.
Not the table. Yeah, right.
Properly. Yeah,
fundamentally rely on the laws of logic.
yeah, properly basic beliefs, basically.
Right.
Yeah,
Properly.
we all have them. We all have them. So it's how we make dinner every day, right? I don't.
So that's what I'm driving at. Even though it might not be interesting to you, it's interesting to me.
Yeah, it's interesting that, like, it's interesting to me that the universe, the cosmos, basically is of a structure that produces that logic in us, in that relationship between us and the world. That logic keeps coming out of it, no matter who we are.
How did you learn that particular information?
How did I learn what information? I'm not sure.
I didn't understand what you just said. It's interesting, but
that logic is in the world. Mathematics is in the world. Mathematics is physical. Logic is physical. The way the world works, there is the problem of induction, but it's not really a problem because things keep working the same way. When things quit working the same way, then we got a problem.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You're talking about David Hume, the atheist philosopher, right? He's known for that.
Of induction, right?
Why do you think he brought it up as a problem and you don't see it as a problem?
He brought it up as a problem because he's a philosopher and that was his job. He called it, I don't know if did he call it a problem of induction? I'm not sure if he
definitely.
Okay, definitely.
Problem of induction, because he's saying, how can you? He's saying, as an atheist, I've come to terms that I can't justify the fact that I'm putting faith in the future as though it'll be the same as the past and relying on it. He's saying, I can't honestly do that. I can't understand and justify how I'm doing that as an atheist. It's a problem to him.
Well, you couldn't say for certain that basically everything is going to keep working the same way that it worked before. I could walk into my bathroom now and the entire universe could dissolve around me, including myself, and poof, I'm gone. I mean, that could happen at any minute. The earth could suddenly just disintegrate and dissolve. The entire universe could. The laws of physics could just completely break down, but they don't. And they haven't, in my 72 years. So I don't think it's a problem having, I have faith that the next thing is going to happen exactly like the last thing did, right? It's faith.
Excellent. Right. And what is that faith in?
Faith in the physicality of the universe. Naturalism, physicality. I have faith that the universe is going to keep working.
Naturalism. So
face it. Yeah.
These laws, though, like to say that you have faith in naturalism regarding the laws of logic, what do you think physically the laws of logic are?
Physically, the laws of logic are physically. In order to describe that, it would take a set of books that would stack from here to the moon. Okay, so we're not going to be able to describe the laws of logic. The laws of logic are something humans came up with, right? We call it the laws of logic.
Well, hold on
but the source of all that is basically that the table is there, and if I try to run through the table, me and the table at the same time doesn't work, and from that logic is built. So, and we come up conceptually, linguistically and mathematically with the laws of deduction and laws of logic. But to say that, to ask what is the physicality of the laws of logic is a nonsensical request.
Well, maybe there's a different way of asking you that. I don't think it's a nonsensical question, not the concept behind what I'm asking you, at least. As a
Yeah, maybe
physics,
I'm not understanding you. Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to grasp how you think of this as a physicalist, because I don't know the laws of logic. Given we're calling these constructs the laws of logic, identity, excluded, middle, non-contradiction. That's what we term them. That's how we describe them, use them in language. But whatever they are, physically is what's in question. I don't know them to be anything physically. And as a physicalist, I would be interested in how you answer that. The saying it takes a huge explanation with thousands of books certainly isn't the answer to that.
Well,
But
describing
as a physicalist, there seems to be a burden for you on that particular explanation. If you're relying and utilizing these alleged laws and they exist in reality, there seems to be a burden there for you, doesn't there?
it would take a stack of books that high to represent what humans basically have done with the laws of logic. Okay, so that's a different question. So you're asking another question. You're asking what the laws of logic are physically. Okay, we have a Cartesian coordinate system, space-time, four-dimensional, right? I don't think that's the end of it. I think the universe is really infinite dimensional, but we understand four dimensions. We have particles in those dimensions. If you have two particles, two electrons, they have a weird habit of not only are they only identical to themselves, but they're also very, very similar to each other. All those things are laws of physics, right? How particles work, how fields work, and they can't be in one place at the same time without interacting in some manner and becoming something else. You can't stick two electrons in the same space, right?
All right, look, I think you're describing some sort of process that you think's related to how reality works.
Physics.
Yeah, sure. Physics, you would agree, also rely on these classical laws of logic, correct?
No, physics is what constructs the laws of logic. What we know about the physical universe.
So you're saying physics can prove the physical nature behind the laws of logic, what they actually consist of, these alleged laws.
Well, that's a nonsense statement there. Physics can prove itself.
Physics can demonstrate these alleged laws that we utilize.
We as humans can derive those laws from physics, basically. We can see how they're derived. But basically, the universe, which we are very much a part of, we are physical too. When we first split as a zygote and we start interacting with the universe, those laws of logic construct our logical behavior, right? Our reasonable behavior. They train us into it. Your neurons are very plastic. And if you were plopped down into a different reality where those laws of physics didn't work, you would wire very differently and you would acquire that as your reality, right? But we're not. We all are plopped down in the same reality. As it
all
seems.
Right, you're losing me a little bit because I think I'm focusing on this differently than whatever you're describing. When I think of a scientist or a physicist carrying out an experiment, I'm saying that they rely on these very laws as we're describing them. They need identity. They need non-contradiction in order to create a hypothesis and do an experiment. They need those in place before they start, while they do the experiment, and afterward to review the data.
Right. They were all zygotes too, and they grew up in the same reality and they constructed the same ideas about reasoning as I did. I mean, very few physics have to pull down a logic book off the shelf. I have 180 logic books up here.
They're assuming
I seldom pull them down. What's that?
Right. They're already assuming the laws of logic when they go to work.
Because the laws of logic are how we all walk around the world and feed ourselves. It's how you drive your car. You rely on the same thing. You have faith in the same thing we do. Right?
Yes, right.
You have faith in it.
Right, but I'm not getting from you how they're physical. You're saying that physics have shown through demonstration of some sort that these laws are actually physical. And I'm saying that you're describing something
I never
that's
said that. I never said that.
okay. Well, maybe
I
I misheard you, but I think you're describing something that isn't physical, but you perhaps want to.
Physicality constructed me as I am today. And it constructed you as you are today, and that's why we're able to reason with each other and talk. And the physics is the same for both of us, and our structure is the same. We're both humans, right? And we came
Yeah,
up with the
not disputing
same
that.
idea. Physics doesn't have to prove itself in order to use physics. You don't have
Not
to.
disputing
You
that.
don't have to. You don't have to prove logic in order to drive your car or make dinner, do you?
So you're saying you assume these logical laws, right? We both do. We're both
Yep.
assuming them when we have faith in them,
Right.
right? I'm agreeing with you on that, and I'm saying, what are they? What do they consist of? Because as a physicalist, they need to be physical in your worldview, and I'm not. I have no idea that these laws are physical.
I already
Because
explained that to you. There are two particles. They can't occupy the same space. They have something in common. They seem to have the same properties, basically, even though they're two different things. And that's where it starts. And we grew up in that reality, and we constructed, or it constructed itself in us.
you're using
Allowed
the
us to
very
use it.
ideas of these laws in your description. So you're begging the question there. I'm asking you what they are, in fact, and you're giving me ideas of identity that just exists, but you're using the concept to explain it.
Okay, I grew up basically. I started as a zygote. I grew up in this world of reality. And somewhere along the line, I was asked to start to describe what is going on and try to stand outside myself and look at things objectively, right? And so now I come up with all these descriptions, and we keep coming up with more and more descriptions. Basically, what it is, and you're asking what it is, and I told you what it is. It's particles in fields and space and time. That's it.
So the
That's
classical
what
laws
we.
of law, the classical laws
That's
of logic that we rely on to have knowledge, discussion,
We
identity
figured
over
that out
knowledge.
after the fact. Logicians did not. They didn't exist when they were zygotes. They acquired that knowledge, that method of description of the universe, right? So there was nothing about them that. I mean, if you ask about the physicality of the laws of logic, I've got to know more about what you mean. Do you mean what
Okay,
is it
I'm
in
asking you,
my mind?
right. I'm asking you if you think that these alleged laws are prescriptive or descriptive is one way to put it forth.
Prescriptive and descriptive. For us, it's descriptive. We describe what is prescribed by reality.
Prescribed by reality, explain that. I mean, as far as the laws of logic, how that
It's
entails.
it's just what we're stuck with. We're stuck with this physical universe and these physical laws.
Saying we're stuck with something isn't describing what it is.
I told you,
You told me
particles
that you
in
think it's a
space and time.
particle. I know, but there's no. You think it's particles. You think that these laws are particles.
Particles in fields in space
Okay.
time. Yeah.
But these particles have not formally been discovered by physics, correct?
Yeah, they have. They've
Okay,
been.
so the laws of logic are tested through a scientific process.
You can test them. Yeah, you can try to
But
put
the
two
laws
electrons in the same
themselves,
space.
so science utilizes the law within the test to test what the law is.
Yep,
The
that's what we're stuck with. We're stuck with that network of trying to understand what we are, trying to step outside of ourselves and understand what we are, even though we're stuck in the thing that we're trying to understand. And you're definitely going to always end up with a circle. How do you ground your worldview? I mean, what do you
Yeah, I
ground
see
it?
what you're saying there, but well,
Where do you start?
I start with God.
Okay, but where do you get this guy idea from? I didn't have that when I was born. Did you?
When I'm trying to consider these alleged laws of logic. I consider them to be an immaterial invariant force. So that's why
Yeah.
that's why I'm
Physics
asking
isn't
you about the physicality of them, because
physics is
I
a
don't know them to be physical.
physical.
If you're telling me that the laws of logic are described through physics and science, this is a huge discovery I was not aware of until this conversation.
Really?
Yeah. So
I
I'm
mean,
actually a little intrigued by this, because I know that most people start conversations, theories, philosophical discussions on their worldview saying that they adhere and comply with these alleged laws of logic in order to make sense out of dialogue, have a coherent worldview, and use language to impart knowledge and have a conversation with one another, that they rely on them. They don't know what they are, how they exist, or why they exist necessarily, but they utilize them, assume them, presuppose them within their worldview. So for you to say that they've been calculated scientifically, that is news to me. Yes.
well, that's because you are putting a bit of religiosity onto science, right? Science didn't create anything new when it started doing strict science, right? Strict methodological naturalism and testing. We just relied on what we all knew already, what you and I already knew at 5 years old. That if we poke ourselves in the eye, it's going to hurt, right? So that's that I call R1 reality, basically our common sense reality that we grew up in. You start with that, and science is constructed from that. And until something fails, science is just going to keep going, creating laws of logic and mathematics and ideas about the cosmos and all of that. All of that stuff is constructed from that. Okay. But if you look at physics and you start doing physical tests, what you're doing is you're testing those assumptions. We're testing those assumptions that we all knew about at 5 years old and we all relied on and had faith in, that we all knew before we ever had an idea of God. I mean, God isn't something you were born with, right?
Well, I like the idea of you talking about faith, because you have to have faith in something in order to have faith. And it's definitely a huge question to me what you put your faith in, or if you think you put it in various things.
Well, do you think faith is without evidence?
What's that?
Do you think faith is without evidence? Do you think we just like pick something randomly and have faith in it?
Well,
Like belief without evidence.
I'm asking you if that's not what you're doing, because you can put a word after faith, right? You could say, I have faith in science, but that entails, I would argue that entails more than just the word science, right?
Right. I have faith in science because I have faith in rationality and logic, and I have faith in the reality that I grew up in and found that basically shaped what I am.
So you can say more. You can say more things to make it more complex, I guess. You have faith in science, faith in experience, faith in sense data, and so forth. But you're still circular in the way that the science that you're using requires faith and logic. And
we don't come up as organisms.
The logic that you're saying has been discovered by science. It hasn't.
You don't think so?
It's utilized in the scientific method. To say that logic is a scientific, something that you can demonstrate empirically, again, is news to me. And I don't
really
think that, yes, it's not. The laws of logic are not an empirical discovery.
So if you have an apple or an orange, right? You believe that somehow you can have both at the same time, or you don't believe in logic?
I'm saying you can demonstrate what you're calling these laws through physical objects. I'm not disputing that. I'm saying the actual laws themselves, the nature of them, to call them physical and say that they've been discovered through science is not true to my knowledge.
Okay, what is the nature of an apple and an orange? So we're going to look at the nature of both those things. And we're saying they are not the same thing, right? And you can prove that with science. So we know that they're not the same thing. So so basically those laws of logic fall out of physicality and nature. It falls out the physical nature.
So if you don't have anything physical, the laws of logic cannot exist.
Well, if you don't have anything physical, I'm guessing that there wouldn't be anything at all.
Right. the laws of logic are utilized conceptually and demonstrated through physical objects. I agree with you
Yeah.
there, but I'm saying what they actually are, what entails these prescriptive laws that we're adhering to, is not physical. And for you just to say that they've been discovered through the scientific method is erroneous.
They've been verified through the
They've
scientific
been
method. I never said
utilized as part of
you kind of put those words in my mouth that
well, I'm
physics
describing it
proves
in my own
physicality.
way to see if it'll hit you in a different way, because
Right.
you utilize these laws within the science, right? You need the law of identity in place in order to utilize the scientific method. You rely on it, as you said, and have faith in it.
Okay, so suppose you're raised on a jungle desert island or a jungle island somewhere, right? And you've never cracked a book in your life. At some point, somebody teaches you to read, and you open the book. How do you open the book? What laws are you relying on?
How do I open the book, and what laws am I relying on to open the book?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm using some sense data. I'm using my hands to open the book. I'm relying on the book being the book throughout the time. Is that what you're asking?
I hate the word sense data or the phrase sense data.
Well, you can
anyway.
hate it if you want to, Mike.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I'll try to cover your pet peeves about certain languages, but the concept behind them is what's important. What did you want to know about the book? Am I relying that the book will remain the book through my experience?
Okay. Let's talk about sense data as all of the database or all of the things that have hit your senses from the time you were a zygote to now, right? We could say that data, quote unquote, basically carved your mind and your relationship to the universe and taught you how to open a book, right? And then you open the book and you start reading and you read about science, right? And what you read has to make some sense based on what you already know, because on your jungle you had apples and oranges and you knew that the damn things were different, and you knew that one was, you could have one or you could have the other. So now we've constructed the or clause, right? You can have an apple or an orange, or you can have an apple and an orange. You can have both of them at the same time. You put them both in your basket. All of these things fall out of physicality. They don't have to be proven by physics. We all believe them. We all have faith in them. It's how we come to be.
I mean, how are you accounting for your faith through the empirical method?
Faith is something your brain does as a shortcut. We could call it intuition or whatever. But I mean, I know I don't have to think or calculate in order to reach for this cup of coffee, right?
I'm asking you how you can account for faith in your empirical method. To say that the brain does something is not going to be a sufficient answer for that question.
How do I account for faith in my
as an empiricist, a physicalist, to say that you can utilize faith wherever you want? How can you make that move with that world?
Okay, I'm a 3-year-old. I have some marbles in front of me, and I reach for the marble. How does a 3-year-old account for his faith in that? That's how I
don't know how the 3-year-old does that, but I'm talking to you, Mike, and I
okay,
want to know you as a physicalist, an empiricist, how you account for it.
Okay, I started out by reaching for marbles, just like you probably did, right? You reach for toys and you pick them up. That's where I started out. I went all through my life. I added logic, mathematics, philosophy, science, whatever, and accumulated all this knowledge. It was all a network that meshed together. It all meshes together. Everything self-checks everything else, right? I could take this cup and put it under my microscope over here. Okay, I can investigate any one of those things, but I don't investigate them in my ordinary life. I simply do it by faith. I have faith in my lived life. I have a lot of faith, basically. I think more so than you religious people.
Yeah, I would say so too, actually.
I have faith
that you don't have a particular starting point. You have to have more faith, seemingly, because to connect to connect what your worldview or whatever you're doing, it does require a lot of faith.
Well,
But
no, that's not where I'm at now, because now I know I was a zygote. Right now, I can go back and I can self-check all of that. So now I can construct a worldview, and that's why I became an atheist at what, 57 years old, 55 years old, something like that. I was transferred from agnostic to hard atheist because I went back and I thought these things through. I thought about them all, and it's like, okay, that's where I came from. I know what reality is. Everybody knows the reality. You're a naturalist. You don't know it. You probably wouldn't admit it, but you are. You behave
and if you're
naturally.
wrong about those things, then you just reframe it and reconstruct it and reapply
Right.
it.
If anything doesn't work, then I will stand corrected. Basically, it's all provisional. I mean, my entire life is provisional. At one point, I'm going to blink out of existence, and that's going to be the end of the provisional life.
Well, I mean, so you think you don't have any empirical evidence that that's what's going to happen?
Scott said something here. I don't have any empirical evidence that. Oh, I have lots of empirical evidence
that what you said is going to happen is going to happen. It's the problem with induction. You don't know the future, right? You have faith in what you think is going to happen based on your experience. It's not empiricism.
Do I know for certain what's going to happen? No, I don't.
Do you know anything? You don't know anything for certain. You would also claim, correct? So your starting point epistemologically essentially is I don't know.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's.
And what can I figure out?
I mean, that's a problematic starting point when you draw back. I don't know. It sounds humble, right? It sounds like there's some humility there, but I don't know what that has to do with knowledge.
Well, if I start right now today, there's a lot of things I know. I know I'm sitting on a chair. I have a cup of coffee. I have a microphone. I have a computer. There's a lot of things I know now.
You're not certain of any of them, though.
Am I certain of
faith in the coffee cup that's going to hold together the chair and so forth, correct?
The word certain is it's basically a religious idea. It's from Christianity. It doesn't make any sense. Certainty is like something like it's asymptotic, right? I mean, you approach the line, but you can never, you never quite get there, but you get damn close. So it's asymptotic, but it's very, very close. So I mean, I'm good enough that I have faith. When I die, I'm going to blink out of existence, and it's going to be wonderful. And all of this is based on everything that I know, and most of those things I know are things that you know too.
Yeah, we're having a decent conversation. I agree. A lot of these things make sense to me that you're saying. I'm just trying to get to a different.
How do you get to God? I don't understand the God.
Well, I start with God, and that's why I'm trying to draw back to your starting point, because you say you have a lot of faith, and I believe you have a lot of faith. I'm just trying to figure out what your faith is in. Whereas I put faith in God as a starting point.
Right.
You're saying, I just have faith, and I'll use descriptives to tell you what I have faith in through my experience, but I don't feel like I'm really getting to any starting point. It's all over the place, and I'm not getting answers. I'm definitely not getting answers from you on how you're getting there empirically, as far as back to these laws that you're alleging to use and have faith in. That does not make sense to me still, and that I think is your starting point. I think that you never abandon the classical laws of logic. Am I correct in saying that, or do you abandon them sometimes?
No, I haven't had to. I would if I needed to.
How would one abandon the laws of logic, for instance?
Okay, you brought up some confusion. I think I want to clear it up. Okay, you have the starting point of God. You pick God as your starting point. So you pick this arbitrary starting point.
Well, no, I didn't. I didn't necessarily come about it that way. But hold on. I didn't necessarily pick it that way. You're framing it that way. But go ahead.
Well, it sounds arbitrary to me. You pick a starting point. I could pick any one of these points of knowledge that I have already accumulated, right? When I started the process of trying to understand the mind, consciousness, human beings, what I am in about 2004.
Hold on a second.
I didn't have a singular starting point.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay, go ahead.
You're saying you can pick anything as a starting point?
Yes. Any bit of knowledge that you currently have. Basically, and then of course you don't pick just that point. You have this huge network of knowledge by the time you're an adult, right? And that is the starting point. It's not a point. It's a network. It's not a starting point. But for you, you think you have to have a starting point because you're religious. You're a
You think
believer.
that what you're telling me right now about all these constructs, these starting points, and these theories that you're bringing forth can be verified empirically, and they can't.
They can, as far as
No,
you
they
need to, and verify them. You
Mike,
can't verify that
you're
there's.
constructing a network of systemic knowledge and,
Yep.
and calling it your worldview and speaking about it through languages. You're assuming these universal concepts and the uniformity of nature. And I'm trying to get to how you're doing that, what you think these things that exist are, and you can't empirically verify them, but you're moving past them and saying that they've been verified. The very science that relies on classical laws of logic is not verified through the scientific method, and it's a fundamental misstep. We actually can't even really continue the conversation until you work that out, because it's just not correct.
You can't verify logic through physical in empirical tests.
The classical laws of logic are not something that are verified through empiricism. Like,
I can verify them.
okay,
I can
well, guess what?
I can verify the atoms basically, or and not. All of that can be verified empirically. You can do it with empirical tests. Okay,
No,
you can't have a cup and not have a cup at the same time. Basically that is a basic
physical demonstration of what the laws of logic actually are is
What
not
do you think the laws of
verifying.
logic are?
I don't exactly know what they are. They seem to be immaterial, immutable, invariant constructs that exist in reality that we utilize and presuppose.
Okay,
You,
exist.
however,
You said so.
you, however, have a different explanation and say that they're verified through science.
You said they exist in reality. That's what
did
I'm
say
talking
that.
about. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes,
They're
I
there.
understand what I
We can
said, but
test
you're
them
not
all.
scientifically verifying it. And me saying they exist in reality is not a scientific or empirical verification.
I think it is.
I know you think it is. Can
I
you
think
demonstrate that and verify that? I'm saying you cannot. That it
I
has not
can.
been done. And for some reason, you think it's been done. So I'll tell you what, why don't we table it? And next time we talk, you'll show me the data and we can go from there. Because right now, I really don't see any need to go forward.
Yeah, I think we have a fundamental misunderstanding of what verification is.
Perhaps.
And like I say, you're good. But before we quit, tell me more about this God thing and how you came upon it. How did you come to that idea?
Well, there's multiple things that have happened throughout my life to get there.
What are they? Because I've had some interesting things happen to me too, subjectively in my life.
My main point of bringing God in as the starting point is for justification purposes. When we're talking about things that we rely on and presuppose, like these laws of logic, I think that they are from God. You think that they are empirically demonstrated, verified, scientifically proven. That's a huge
No.
thing.
No. You're
I
putting
said proven.
you're putting those words into my
proven.
mouth. Okay, that you put into my mouth. That word.
Yeah, because you don't say proven, right? They've been empirically demonstrated to exist in reality.
No, they're just there, just like your God. Like you're claiming your God is just there. I'm claiming that the physicality of the universe and laws of logic and reason are embedded in that universe, and they're just there.
So you're saying
they're
they just are.
there.
It just
They
is.
just are. Just like God just is, right?
I don't think it's the same, because you're a physicalist. You're saying they just are, but you have no actual data to support that they're physical, but you want them to be physical.
Okay, but we're starting with a point, right? But the God, and I'm saying physics, right? And those are exactly the same thing. How do you physically verify, empirically verify God? How do you do that?
I don't use empiricism to verify God.
Okay, then why would I need to use empiricism to verify the laws of the universe?
I don't know, right? But you've tried and said that it's been done. That's a great point you just made.
It hasn't. No, nothing has been proven, but the laws of logic and the laws of the universe, basically the laws of physics, fall out of the universe. It's just the way things
They
are. Just
fall
like
out of
your
the
God.
universe. Is that all?
You come.
Is that empiric? Is that going to be empirically demonstrated that they fall out of the universe?
Yes, definitely. You
It
can
is going to be,
empirically.
or it has been.
You they have.
Okay,
A lot of people don't know that, but they have.
What?
Everything you do in physics basically verifies those physical laws, and those physical laws construct these ideas about logic and reason in us as organisms, as part of that physicality, right? And
No,
we all do
you're
this.
begging the
We all know
question.
it.
You're saying
No,
that
not begging the question any more than you're begging the question with picking God as your starting
well,
point.
you're trying to move over to me because you're stuck in a circle there. But you've already said that.
No, I'm stuck in a
You've
network.
already
A
said that
network. Okay,
science.
is a network
Look,
a
you've already
circle?
said that science and empiricism has demonstrated the laws of logic to exist in reality. But
You do it
I'm
every
saying
time you pour a fluid out of a test tube. You're demonstrating the laws of logic and
you're
reality.
you're utilizing and describing the laws of logic within what you're doing. It's not demonstrating the existence and the nature of the laws of logic. You're having faith in them to do the science, to do the experiment. I'm saying it's circular because the very thing that you're utilizing through faith, you're saying that you're demonstrating through empiricism.
Do you pray to God every time you pick up a cup and pour fluid?
Do I need to?
I don't know. What do you do? I
What kind of
mean,
question is
you're
that,
you're
Mike?
relying on the laws of logic and the laws of the universe, right? You haven't
I'm
verified
not
them.
disputing that. I'm relying on them. When we get into where they come from, it's a conversation about justification. I'm saying you rely on them and you have faith in them, but you're not telling me what you have faith in. You're just getting circular, saying I have faith in science, faith in experience, sense data,
Again,
empiricism, whatnot.
a network is not a circle. You can draw circles in a network, but a network is not a circle. It's
Yeah, well,
different.
you can say if you have faith in the network, then I guess is what you're saying.
I mean, is your shirt made out of a circle of thread, or is it a network of thread?
Well, when you get down to the
You have faith in your sweater?
that it's going to hold on,
Yeah, that's going to contain you. That it's not going to fall apart. It's not just one big circle of
look,
thread, right? It's a
I
network.
do have faith in that, and you have faith as well. That's great. That's not even typically something I hear from an empiricist.
I have.
Proclaiming it to such the level that you have, that's fine. That's great. I agree. We both have faith in this reality. The thing about it is the physicalist and the empiricist. That's quite a burden for you to talk about faith so overtly and then rely on empirical data because you're departing from empiricism when you start talking about faith.
No, not at all. Faith is not faith without evidence, belief without evidence. Faith is what we rely on in that network. How you rely on your shirt hanging together. It's
Right.
it's faith in that network. I have
What I'm
faith
saying
in
to
the
you is
universe.
what I'm saying is to you is when you go to verify and demonstrate faith empirically, it's going to be problematic. That's what I'm saying to you.
How would you even do that?
That's
What
what
are you
I'm.
talking?
That's
What
what
are
I'm
you
saying. That
talking about?
I'm saying
What
that's
are
your
you
burden.
talking?
As an
No,
empiricist, that
no,
would
it's
be a
not my
burden for you.
burden.
Well,
No, I don't have to
you
do
don't want
that.
it to be. I
Okay,
understand
it's
that. As an
not.
empiricist, you wouldn't want that to be your burden to make a faith claim and say, okay, can you just empirically demonstrate that? Can you
You can
empirically verify
empirically
it?
demonstrate all of it. Every time you do something, every word you say is empirically demonstrating
That's
this.
after the fact.
It's within the fact. Okay, you want to come from the outside and have some overview God thing, some singular point that explains everything, which you cannot back up at all, which you have no way to empirically verify. And you consider it a single point, and you're
You,
complaining that I start with a network. I start with what I already know as a 50-year-old man, right? Or a 72-year-old man. And, and,
which
and,
one are
and I
you?
cross everything and verify it. I'm 72.
Well, it's confusing that you said 50 there. I don't know.
What's that?
I don't know why you said 50. I don't know.
Oh, because that's kind of where I started thinking about all of this
Oh, I
stuff.
got you.
Prior to that, I was just a programmer, scientist, mathematician, and I didn't really think about life, the universe, and everything. Well, I did when I was a teenager because I had an incredible religious experience as a teenager that kind of got me uh, started in secular Buddhism, basically. So, I mean, that pretty much shaped my life. So I thought a lot about it back then. And then, of course, I got busy with kids and a job and a career and didn't really land again until after age 50. So
Oh, okay.
that's
Yeah,
kind of what I mean.
I thought you glitched there for a second. Yeah, it's all good.
Well, sometimes I'm nine in my mind. I feel like
Yeah,
a 9
yeah.
I feel like a
It's a fun
9-year-old.
place to be.
Have you ever had a religious experience?
I think I'm having one right now.
Oh, good. I'm glad I could help. Okay, maybe we want to end. We come up on an hour, and that's probably enough
Yeah, it's
philosophy
pretty
for
good.
any human being.
It's yeah, it's fine. I mean, you're easy enough
Oh,
to talk to, I think. So maybe we'll talk
yeah,
again if you want to. I would just say
yeah.
to take away, like as an empiricist, as a physicalist, w- the way I understand that is that life is demonstrated, life is evidenced by physical objects, physical reality
Everything
through
physical.
empiricism. So when you start using immaterial constructs or faith ideas, I think you're going outside of that domain.
I think
That's
faith is
basically
pretty
all I'm saying
physical.
to you.
I don't next time we should talk about what is physical and what would non-physical be, because I am very confused about what non-physical would even be. I don't understand what
Yeah,
that means.
right, right. I think that's where we're parting ways. I don't think of the what's behind what powers the laws of logic. We can describe them and demonstrate them with physical objects. I don't think what's actually there in reality is physical, and I don't think it's been discovered. And that's why I
You
was
probably
confused
you
because
probably don't believe mathematics is physical, right? That arithmetic and mathematics is physical. You think it's like
I
some.
think the constructs behind how they work are not physical.
Okay.
I think there's an objectivity and a universal nature there that keeps them consistent, that makes them work. I tend to talk about the laws of logic more because it's what I'm more familiar with on a particular subject. But
Okay. So you
again,
think there's something abstract. There's something outside of
well,
physicality.
I think well, yeah, I think we're talking about abstractions and trying to utilize language, concepts, physical objects to demonstrate them and to make sense of them. But I think they are abstractions. That's my point.
Well, I
Right?
think abstractions are just monkeys making squeaky noises at each other. So, and that's all physical. So, I guess that's where we differ, and that's probably where we should start by
Yeah,
trying to
you
flesh
think
out
you
what non-physical would mean, because I don't understand what that
well,
would
if
mean.
you're saying these things are right, you we can do that. And if you say that they're physical, I'm going to continue to ask you to demonstrate or bring the evidence of their
Yeah, I've done
physicality.
that.
Just say a
I've done.
network, and to say that they're atoms in a network. It's not. I don't think that's specific enough because like what atoms, what network, like where do you point and go? There are the laws of logic. That's what makes reality work. There it is. It's not particular enough. I'm trying to follow what you're saying, but
Yeah,
it's
there's
not.
something foundationally different about the way I think and the way a lot of other people think, even atheists. I
Okay.
run into this. I run into the same problem with, but anyway, okay, that'll be a place to start. But I think we should wrap it for
Okay. Fair
1 hour.
enough.
Cool,
Yeah, I appreciate the
fun.
time and the benevolent
Yeah, you're good
conversation.
to talk to. I enjoy you. So, um,
All right. Well, thanks for coming,
you,
Mike.
yep. Okay,
Take-
later.
All right. Um, well, I don't know. If anyone wants to come in, I guess now's the time. Um, I don't know what to make of that discussion. I don't feel like I really got anywhere, but I felt like I was getting somewhere. But there's a difference in how, definitely a fundamental difference in how we're seeing things, and I feel like I have to hold to the point I was making and not move from there, because otherwise it's just overstepping a huge fundamental difference that I don't think it was verified, right? I don't think. Yeah, a category fallacy. Light before the tunnel. Good to see you, brother. Tommy, Peter, you guys should check out Light Before the Tunnel's channel, specifically the comment section. Great articulation dealing with atheists, and we hope to get you on here sometime. Light Before the Tunnel. If you want to come in, um, that'd be great. Love to hear from you. I just really appreciate your comments dealing with atheists, the time that you put into them. And I see a similar issue. Like, you're really laying that out point by point based on exactly what they're telling you. And the argument is being shifted or steered in a different direction away from the point. And the point is the one that they originally brought up. And I see this a lot in this community, the theist and the atheist community, moving away from the point that was originally brought up. And this makes it difficult when you want to stay there, because it makes you seem like you get called out for like running a script or not being flexible. But you have to stay with that fundamental point in order to move forward. And I think that's exactly what was happening today with Mike and I. But anyway, what's going on, Tommy? How you doing, brother?
Well, thank you. Everything at the same time. Wasn't that exciting? That was wow.
I mean, really? You thought it was exciting?
Yes, I did. Did you hear those confessions?
Well, yeah.
Oh
Good
my
point.
God. 50
Yeah.
plus 12, a 50-year-old man, a 72-year-old man. What does it mean? That intellectual, or whatever he was, exhausted himself. And wow, those confessions. Wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good point. I did hear a lot of confessions of faith, and
Yes,
that was surprising to hear so overtly.
Oh, did you hear
A
the
lot
one
of
about
faith.
he had a religious experience when he was 12, I think, or I can't remember precisely when.
Yeah. I mean, certainly
Wow.
he's.
Wow.
It's good to see that in the positive. You can leave it
Yes.
there.
And something about Buddha. Yes. And then at another point, he said 8 years old.
Hey, Tommy.
Hey, Peter. Good to see you, my lord.
Hey, Peter.
Hey, Jay, how's it going?
Going all right.
That
You know
seemed like a nice conversation.
Yeah, it was fairly. Yeah, it was decent.
I bet you he regrets it.
No, I think he's okay with it. I think he's pretty strong on his worldview, but
oh yes, powerful intellectual.
I'm just hoping that maybe instead of going and watching it with his atheist buddies and just characterizing me as doing this or doing that, that he tries to go back and listen to the questions I'm asking him. I feel like he was claiming that he can empirically verify these alleged laws, what prescribes them, and I really think he's missing that.
Yeah, well, I think, obviously he's going to be defensive in this situation. So,
right, and I think at least we made a good platform to not be so head to head and be defensive. At least I think we did that part right. We weren't like at each other's throat or anything.
That's good. Cordiality is always nice.
Yeah, because if we get combative, then it's just defending your position more than listening to the other guy.
What do you think, Peter? You think that man is a closet Hebrew?
I think I'm hopeful for him, I guess.
I am too. Oh yes. It's definitely
Now I
him.
remember why I thought that was a towel, Tommy.
I beg your pardon?
Your avatar, I thought it was a towel.
Yes. Oh.
Because South Park, they have that character Towley.
Oh yeah, that is right. Yeah,
That's what I was thinking of.
I think he's purple, but that does look like him.
Or blue, I think.
Yeah.
There was also a fellow on SpongeBob who sported that same countenance. It was a SpongeBob CGI. I don't know if you're familiar with that series, SpongeBob SquarePants, but anyway.
No, I think
I had Nickelodeon that year. I had small children, so
I think my kids are too old for SpongeBob or too young, one of the two. But I think, the more I think about it, and as I hear the conversations go, it's really the heart of it is really what's holding the uniformity. And I mean, you can go with the universal laws of logic, but it's really the uniformity of nature that all the scientific method relies on and everything relies on. And we know that it's God who's holding it all together. The Bible goes to great lengths to describe how he does it, why he does it. I mean, talk about informed faith. We know why the physical laws don't change and why they're consistent one moment to the next. That seems like a very good place to make somebody wonder. What is it that you have faith in that same thing that is doing those things, but you're not calling it God? I would think that would prompt somebody to think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got a short story I'd like to submit.
Nice.
Okay.
I'll try and keep it under 60 seconds. I met a buddy in community college who claimed he had one testicle from a childhood injury, but that being beside the point, he was also Jewish, so he said. And we were buddies, and he was a bright young man, but he never tipped. He was always very stingy with his tips, and that was one thing about my buddy that I noticed. But then he reported a conversion. He reported a conversion unto Christ Jesus, whoever he is, and he began to tip generously. Well, a couple of years later, I met his grandfather who had a tattoo on his wrist. And his grandfather sat down with me and told all about how he had clung under a truck to get out of some type of Birkenau concentration camp, and gave me a moving 4-hour testimonial of what it was like to be a Jewish fella in Poland. But anyway, my buddy's grandfather became disturbed about his grandson's conversion unto Christ Jesus, whoever he is. And I thought about that. I thought, why was that wondrous old fella, Jewish fella, who had the tattoo on his wrist, showed it to me. Why was he disturbed over his grandson's beliefs? Why? But I thought about it, and hey, if I'd been locked up in a fucking concentration camp in Poland and seen more death than you could imagine in the name of Christ or in the name of politics or whatever, I might have trouble with somebody else's beliefs too. That's the end of the story. I hope it was under 60 seconds. I think that man that was just in here is of Jewish heritage. And I asked myself, why would someone of Jewish heritage have trouble with one of the thousands of Christianities that's rolling around on the internet? Or why would one of Jewish heritage have trouble with believing in Christ Jesus? Well, I surmise, hey, I might have problems with another man's faith too if I had seen stuff. Anyway, I added another 30 seconds on. Back to you.
All right.
I hope that Braskel's listening
Yeah.
Why do you think he's Jewish?
because of what he said about being a man for 50 years
Oh,
and then 72. What's the age of bar mitzvah these days? Got any idea, Peter?
oh my goodness. Huh. You are a perceptive rascal.
I just got an ear for confessions, bro. There's always a reason for every confession. It slipped out. It kind of popped out. But anyway, yeah. What's the age of bar mitzvah? Is it 13? Is it 12? Is it 12 full years? Is it the first day of your 13th year? And is it different for the ladies? Do they have a bar mitzvah at? Perhaps our former interlocutor has understanding about such things. Or Jay's former interlocutor. Yes, perhaps not. Forgive my surliness about such heartfelt, delicate matters. And
Yeah, I have a confession that I didn't really listen as closely. I was going in and out between the side chat and the conversation. So I'd like to listen to it all over again from the beginning so I can.
Yeah, you can make pointers maybe of where things got missed or where something would have been helpful. Certain question in a certain spot.
I really think, the more I think about it, it's faith in the continuity of nature that really is the thing that they have complete blind faith in.
Yeah, I think he willingly admitted that. He wouldn't want to call it blind, but I think he did.
And also recognize that it is a something. That's a big step, maybe.
Yeah, because what is it? It's just it's acceptable to him to have faith without warrant as an empiricist. That's what I'm trying to get him to think about. He's got to at least depart from the label of empiricism to be able to keep that idea coherent, doesn't he?
As I said before, I told you after Bree came on that show, I said anytime somebody tells me they're an empiricist, I need a clear definition of what they're talking about.
Yeah, I could have gone that route. I think maybe I asked him last time, and it comported with what I understood an empiricist to be, that just use sense data and scientific methods to discover reality. But he has a pet peeve with certain words, I think. Sense data he didn't like. He doesn't like the word prove. But I don't know. He's interested enough. He gets me thinking as well. It's good. I just think he had so much faith that that was nice in itself, even though I didn't get anywhere with him. To hear such an admission of faith throughout the conversation was like, wow, you don't typically get that from an atheist.
I suspect. What was his name again?
His name's Mike, but he has a nickname of Speed. A lot of people call him.
Speed. Mike answers in atheism. He knows who he is. God knows. I suspect that he's experiencing regret about this interaction.
I think he's probably going to. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that every man comes to places like this with their own interest to reinforce what one believes. And I think Mike was no exception. He came here today to reinforce what he believes, not to unravel it, and or even not to, maybe to crystallize it more. And I think that maybe his beliefs are changing as a result of this interaction today. This is just my personal belief. And that might not be so comfortable. That might not have been his goal in coming. Well, but I do hope he enjoyed it. I do hold that hope.
I've heard Mike say that he's, as he's gotten older, he's pretty much open to everything. So I view that as a positive outlook on life. So I'm hopeful. That's,
I think he's probably just going to play this back to his group, and they're going to try to characterize it and frame it how they want to. I think
Of
that's
course.
what happens. But
Of course.
maybe you're staying on a deeper level, Tommy. Like he's kind of wrestling with the idea of how much faith he has and how he can't really account for it. He just has it. Something like that. I don't know.
Well, Peter says that Mike confessed that he's growing, or at least open to growing. Yes, that he doesn't know everything. He's open to growing.
Yeah.
I find that honorable. And yes.
But other thing is, it's one thing to have faith in the laws of logic, but it's not rational. You need a mind to instantiate the laws of logic for that to be a rational view. So you can't just have faith in the laws of logic. You have to have faith in the thing that the laws of logic were created by and maintained.
Yeah, that's kind of the point of where this goes is the justification point, right? It just is
right.
Particularly where you get in conversation when they go, well, I utilize these laws, whatever they are, because they seem to be reliable, and I have no reason to doubt them, and they just are.
And to say the laws of logic are immutable and universal because of God is a rational view, right? And to say that the laws of logic are immutable and unchanging because they just are is not rational.
Yeah, they don't like to put God at the top of that as the justification. They reject that, but somehow it just is, they just are, becomes rational, and it doesn't.
It can't.
I wonder if Scott Mike's faith in his atheism remains unshaken. Does Mike have faith in God or in his atheism? Is atheism even a religion? Too many questions.
Well, he said he was, when he died, it would be wonderful. I heard him say that at one point.
That's good. That sounds hopeful. I thought of the concept of a holdout. Have you ever heard of that concept, the holdout?
No.
It might be Freudian. I don't know. I have to think about it.
What is it?
The concept of a holdout. It's just a new concept that I thought about today. I thought to myself, are atheist-minded men holdouts? Are they holding out, at all cost until it?
You mean they really deep down have the faith, but they're just buying their time to do what they want until something severe happens?
Some atheist-minded men are quick to get tagged as truth suppressors, but perhaps resistor might be more apt, depending on the atheist-minded man, of course.
Oh, you want to do a little Romans 1:18 update, I see, sir.
Yeah. You know how atheists, they do take a lot of hits, man. Atheist-minded men take a lot of besmirchment. They do. Oh, I'm sure it's tough on them at times.
Wow.
They're just resisting. They're not suppressing.
See, last night I got home and I turned on Gurr. You know Gurr, right, Jay?
Yeah.
And they have a stream, and Tommy Will Freeman was on that stream. I don't know if you saw it.
I missed that.
Oh, they tore into him like you
Oh
would not
my.
believe.
Will Freeman?
Yeah, Pocket Locker, Stephanie Helms, they were just tearing him up
Is it old material or new material? Do you know?
last night. Can you play? You can play some of it.
Wait, you mean they were talking to William, or they were or
William went on their panel. He went on their panel
Really?
last week, and then he came on again this week. I didn't see last week. I don't
Oh,
think.
I know why. Because he was going against the trans community in one of his videos a week ago.
Well, this week it was because he had
Oh.
a raccoon avatar, which I never really thought about, that they said was racist, and that prompted the.
Do you like Bud Light? Never mind, just kidding.
That caused the outrage.
Now, Will currently coins himself, whatever he is. Will currently coins himself as a untraditional theist. Is that marginally accurate?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think he might even refer to himself as a Christian, and I think I've heard him say that he believes Christ is risen from the dead. So,
all right. Whew, I always love that confession.
yeah, me too.
Yeah, I know, man. It's wondrous. But
But
I think he may have some religious butthurt concerning something demiurge or something along those lines or something.
it's very disconcerting to hear him speak about the Bible. It's, it makes me wonder, if he never believed any of it at all in the first place. It's just very weird to me.
Hmm.
Because these are kind of like ingrained resentments, they sound like, when he talks about the Old Testament and when he ridicules, things in the Bible that kind of like stretch the imagination a little bit, and he ridicules them. It just makes you wonder. Well, it just gives me a bad feeling.
Well, if one of us finds oneself taking issue with the Old Testament, there's usually a reason. It's usually incurred. Maybe it's from the law written in one's heart, or maybe it's from reading Leviticus or reading about that account of that prophet, that bald-headed prophet who got mocked by some youngins, and then the youngins got slain by the bear, whatever. But there's usually a reason one may incur offense at the Old Testament or some portion thereof. Yeah, it's usually a reason.
Right.
But others would say, oh, Tommy, the law is written in a man's heart. Maybe he's taking offense from that. Maybe he's not taking offense from Leviticus 3:16 or 4:18 or some arbitrarily picked verse. Maybe he's taking it from something on the inside that's condemning him, or something driving him or pestering him or priming him or leading him. I don't know. It gets all mystical at that point,
Yeah. I mean, they always take everything in the worst possible imaginable way, the worst portrait of God imaginable.
That's called straw guiding, I think.
Yeah.
Straw guiding. You've heard of straw manning?
Yes, I have. I'm very familiar, but
yeah, straw guiding.
Yeah, that's new for me. That's very good.
I think Mike's running this live on his channel.
Oh, we're famous. Hello, atheist-minded men. God knows who you really are, and I suspect he is not offended.
Well, that should do it, Tommy.
Do what? You think it might be amusing or edifying, Peter?
I think it should be edifying.
Oh, good. I hope I at least get a laugh out of some imagined hearer. Yeah.
You got to check. Oh, good question from the side chat for Tommy. Tommy.
Yeah.
What keeps St. Tommy from accepting that atheists just don't think a God exists?
Good question. What keeps me or my mind from thinking from that or accepting that atheist simply, no, just exclusively don't think a God exists? Great question. All atheists everywhere. Great. Why do I think all atheists? No, wait. What kind of question is that? I'm going to have to say that's an incogent inquiry. It's a collective inquiry. It's also time sensitive inquiry. Yeah. What the hell are you asking, Scott? Excuse me, Mr. Duke. Or would that be Brother Duke? Only God knows for sure.
What's up?
Yeah. God reveals himself to whosoever he does, however he does, whenever he does. Perhaps God hasn't revealed himself quite fully enough to some of us reformed booger eaters, or should I say semi-reformed booger eaters? Yeah.
Semi.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. But interesting question nonetheless. Yeah.
Yeah, I was, like I said, I was in the side chat and I missed some big chunks of the conversation that I should have thought of more. What did you think of the conversation, Tommy?
I was well amused. You know, boredom is an enemy in my little reality. Yes. With just me and God hanging out, you know?
Yeah. It's a beautiful day here. Sunny.
Kind of rainy here. A little sad.
So what did you think of the conversation, Jay?
Well, it was all right. Not too eventful, but I guess it's all right. You know, I was thinking about it before it started. You know, just warming up to it. What might come up? What I might say in case of this and that. Goes by pretty quick.
Right.
I mean, I guess I really got to the points I wanted to get. I think the frustrating thing is about these conversations because of the depth of them. Trying to go back and get to someone's starting point is. It's not a matter of repeating it or reframing it or shaping it in a way that, well, it is, but it's not something that you just get within the conversation. You know, it's the type of conversation, maybe if he thinks about it or reflects back on it, it might be like, oh, I see what he's saying there. Even though, because when you're in the conversation, sometimes your defenses are up or you're distracted. I'll probably go back and listen to it to myself. And, you know,
I definitely am.
Because there's probably things I missed that he was saying, like, oh, something like, oh, I asked him that, but he did answer that sufficiently. But sometimes I think there's answers in place or answers put forward that really just are not what's being asked. But
he said he had faith in the universal laws of logic.
Yeah, right. Okay. We all do. Yeah.
Yeah, I all do.
But the fact that they're particles and they've been Well, I guess the word discovered didn't come up. I should ask, they've been discovered
Part
by science. Well, that's what I asked him. I said, as a physicalist, how do you account for these alleged laws? And he said that they were he didn't say discovered, but he alluded to the fact that they were physical and that they'd been demonstrated by science. But he's saying that in everyday life, the identities that we make and the contradictions we point out are the demonstration. That's what I'm hearing from him, but I'm asking him what is behind that.
right.
And he's either not receiving that, or, well, that's my guess, that he's not receiving it that way. So that's probably what's going to continue to come up when I talk to him. I think it's going to get stuck there. And really, if you think about it, for him to receive that should crumble empiricism for him. Because everything that he relies on and has faith is tied into that, and it's not empirically justified. So that's where it is.
Right. Tommy's answer was a non-answer, apparently.
Tommy's answer. I get the feeling with some of these guys, they might be like, yeah, well, I can't answer that, and I don't care. Some people will take that route.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, that's your rating, JG. Scott's rating's a little different. He
What are you
said,
talking about?
"Oh, sorry, never mind."
Besides that, Jay.
I wasn't talking about your answer, Tommy.
Oh, okay.
I was talking about just when you make a point with an atheist on the
Gotcha.
immaterial. Yeah.
If God must reveal for me to have faith, then that hasn't happened yet for me. Hasn't happened for me. Well, okay. I received your confession. Who am I to argue with God or you about, him and y'all's relationship? As far as it being condescending, I hope so. I hope so. I hope that my intense arrogance is not misjudged. Knowledge puffeth up, but gracious understanding will blow your mind. I speak from experience. Several times had my mind blown. Yes. But if I brandished arrogance, may it at least be amusing.
It's amusing most of the time.
Oh, good. I hope it's not too pious. But good. But thank you for your feedback, Mr. Duke, or Brother Duke, or whosoever you are. God knows. Yeah.
It's Scott Duke.
Scott Duke. Okay. That's his given name, yes. My mama told me, never mind, I'll spare you that one.
But, fundamentally, I guess you get down to that point where, even if you get down to that point where you say you have faith in this one thing that's responsible for these transcendental categories and uniformity of nature, even if you get to that point, there's a point from there to Jesus Christ. Now I can get from that point to the Trinity being a necessity, but you still have to get to Jesus rising from the dead and being your Savior.
I got a question for you, Peter.
Yes, sir.
Do you surmise that the Holy Spirit uses logic and reason to reveal himself on occasion?
Oh, yes.
I have too. I have surmised that too. Thanks, Pete.
Yes. Logic is one of the means he uses, right, to even to regenerate us, I would say. I don't know. I mean, I don't know about that. Maybe that's too broad.
Well, I've heard it's controversial.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess.
I've heard that some say, you can't evangelize another human being using logic and reason, but that the Holy Spirit can by his power if he feels like it. That's what I've heard. But it's all very controversial. The employment of logic and reason concerning the conversion of an individual.
What is the order salutis? Order? What is that? The order of salvation, what regeneration, faith. It's got some Latin name, order salutis or something. But yeah, it's a very controversial issue.
Scott wanted to interact with you, Tommy, but you were too glib.
It was just a matter of time, JG.
He put that in the past tense, though.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know.
Do you have any history with Scott, Tommy?
Not to my recollection.
Scott, you can overcome the glibness if you want to talk to Tommy.
Yeah, come in, Scott, if you want.
I'll depart, and then you can just talk at me. I'll depart to the side chat if you're.
Well, I don't want you to depart, Tommy.
I know that, but Scott expresses reluctance.
Oh no! I think he said that in the past tense. I don't think he said.
No, he says I'd like to interact with you, but that disinclined me. It's almost like he's making an excuse of why he's not coming in. I don't buy it.
Look, I've been me for a long time, Scott, and I've had to make peace that I may be offensive by default. Ever since I was a little child, the things that came out of my mouth were both amusing, powerfully amusing, and offensive. I ain't saying I was a prodigy or nothing, but I ain't saying I won't. I did confess to you the war story, didn't I, JG, about being a little blind child?
Yeah.
And amused for hours on end by a philosophy professor who spoke above my pay grade.
Yeah, you had a patch over alternating eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And had to keep them both shut.
For how long?
Weeks on end.
Wow. And what did he teach you?
He spoke to me. Can you imagine having a little child who's, apparently miserable, and the child's just sitting there, and so you play music for the child, and you talk to the child, and you preach to the child, and you sing for the child, and you ask the child questions, and you just run a stream of consciousness to the little child just to keep the little child comforted. That was my dad.
Oh, nice.
I
found out that my dad wasn't my dad when I was 63 years old.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I remember you saying that too. That's wild.
It's very wild.
I heard about a woman who found out that her dad was her uncle.
Oof.
Yeah.
What Ted Bundy found out that his sister was his mother.
Wow.
Yeah. He was adopted by his grandmother. His sister got pregnant, and the mother of the sister raised Ted Bundy like it was his son, and that girl was his sister. He didn't find out till he's got to be 20 or something.
That's kind of sweet.
So I'm waiting about how I'm going to react to this whole thing.
You don't think you're going to blow a gasket, are you?
Well, I'm hopeful.
Oh, Scott, if you want to come in, the link's there. No one here is going to bite your head off. You've already heard Tommy.
Yeah, my shtick it softens after a while. I posture a lot usually when I first.
Oh, is that? Can you put out the link to Mike's channel?
Oh yeah, it's not actually on. Oh, you want me to? You just want me to give you the link to Mike's channel? Yeah. Hold on.
I've interacted with Scott on numerous occasions, and we've always been very pleasant.
Hey JG, you want to help God convert some of these atheist-minded rascals that are listening in?
You know what? I was the format I had on the iPad. I thought it was at Mike's channel, but it's just the live here. But Mike did say he's going to restream this, so same effect, I guess. It's not live over at Mike's, but I think he's going to restream this. So your point still works wherever you're going.
The pressure's off, though.
Right.
Yeah, gee whiz.
But you can continue with what you're going to say.
It was just an inquiry, a personal inquiry, but I try not to ask questions that I haven't already surmised the answer to. Number one, if I ask you, do you want to help God convert atheist-minded men? Chances are I've already surmised that you have, or that you do, or that you may. But anyway,
yeah. I hope so. I think discussions like that might help a certain group of them.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, Scott's coming in, so that's cool. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, Scott.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Doing well. I gotta step away just for a sec. I'll be back. But
Okay, I've got about oops, hold on. I made a rookie mistake. All right, is that better?
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Okay. Now, I've got about a hard 15 minutes I need to put on this because I get to go play with my grandkids a little later, and I have to get ready for that. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
That's cool. Whatever. What's on your mind?
I was just joining you. I just didn't want you to think I was so butthurt that I refused to join you or anything.
I guess I challenged you a little bit there. Yeah.
I'm familiar with Peter W. He comes by Answers in Atheism sometimes, quite a bit actually, and I guess I've seen him around other places. Like, did he mention going on Romania stream? Yeah, so I may have seen him there. Tommy, I don't know you, and I apologize if I've interpreted your tone wrong. I don't want to be tone policing, but my questions are all sincere. I'm, like everybody, I'm constantly looking at the world, trying to figure out what's true, what's false, and so when I ask questions, I'm not trying to bait anybody, unless, of course, I feel like they're trying to bait me or look down on me, which I'm not saying is a good character property or whatever.
To get on someone's level that you don't appreciate.
Yeah, it's just a matter of I sometimes trap myself into that way of going. So that's who I am, and I've really enjoyed the side chat here, and I'd sure like to see people come on Answers in Atheism, and if I know who it is, I may not even cuss. So because I don't want to offend people unnecessarily.
That sounds good. Good to have you here.
Yeah, that's.
But by the way, the assumption that Mike is of Jewish heritage, unless there's something he hasn't shared with me, is he's not of Jewish heritage, I don't believe.
Tommy, could you explain that again? That was I don't think I caught all that. If you don't mind, if you don't want to, you don't.
Not at all. Not at all. I did insinuate that our Mike, or God's Mike, or whoever he truly is, may be of Hebrew or Jewish heritage because of the confessions that he blurted out. Yes, and it was an insinuation and not an accusation.
And I don't want to speak for Mike, but just kind of tentatively, even if he were of Jewish heritage, he would not see anything wrong with that. So,
and so I surmised
okay,
that Mike may be of Jewish heritage because of his several of his confessions about manhood, about being a man for 72 years, and then another confession, being a man for 50 years. 12, do the math.
the numbers.
Yeah.
The numbers don't lie.
Well,
He said I didn't know what a Jew was until I was 12
were
years
his
old.
confessions, and what I surmise from them is, of course, presuppositional. Only God knows who Mike is, if indeed God exists.
If indeed.
So was Tommy right?
Say what?
Was Tommy right then?
That he's of Jewish heritage?
Right.
I do not believe so.
Well, see what Mike wrote in the chat? I didn't know what a Jew was until I saw it. Well, maybe that's kind of cryptic.
Well, there are places I don't know that I really knew about Jews until I started going to church when I was 14. So it's possible to go through your life in certain areas of the country without knowing about Jews.
How interesting, Scott. I have an inquiry. Will you receive it?
Certainly.
Do you now, or have you ever held belief in our Lord Jesus Christ?
Yeah, I became a Christian when I was 14 and unbecame a Christian, or whatever you care to call it, when I was close to 50, 48, I think.
Oh, so are you, may I continue?
Sure.
So according to your self-conceptualization, you are no longer in Christ Jesus?
That is correct.
Simply because you're entangled in unbelief?
Say what?
Simply because you're entangled in unbelief?
Right. I will say tentatively right.
Thank you.
That's a smoke-filled room you're in there. Are you playing cards?
I always get distracted in the side chat.
It's easy to do.
Are you no, I'm not playing cards.
Okay.
Are you a reformed smoker?
No. I was I forget isn't there a thing called aversion therapy? I had pre-smoker aversion therapy because my parents both smoked packs and packs a day, and I was so sick of it by the time anyone ever offered me a cigarette that I said, no way. Because like sometimes in the middle of winter going down to my grandparents' house, we would be driving down the highway with just maybe a quarter of an inch of window cracked, and both of them smoking like chimneys, and I just couldn't stand that.
I was once
call it a win, I say.
Yeah.
I was once driving back from a skiing trip, and it was like minus 30 degrees out, and there were 6 of us in the car, and I was the only smoker. So I kept lowering the window to smoke, and the people in the back seat were freaking out every time I did it. That was pretty weird.
Yeah.
I surmised that some of my condescension may be born of indignation about another man's fearlessness. Who among us doesn't struggle to be fearless?
So are you admitting that I'm sorry to interrupt. Are you admitting that you're actually condescending or that you sound condescending?
As I was saying,
okay. I do apologize, sir.
I heard you.
The answer
Again.
was right there. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, so let me think. Too late.
Oh man, I broke the thought process.
That's not difficult, brother. It's not your fault.
Scott came in, duke it out.
Nah, condescension, you know, okay. I find myself condescending, feeling indignation. And I ask myself, self, why am I experiencing condescension / indignation? Is it because of how another man maintains fearlessness that is different than my way? Now, JG, you may have heard me rattle on about envy of fearlessness. I think you may have.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. And you've heard me talk about fear mongering.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, I submit for your contemplative amusement that each one of us may have our ways of not being afraid of fighting fear. And if your way differs from my way, I'm liable to not like that. I'm liable to feel indignation, if not envy, maybe a little indignation, maybe manifested in condescension. Like, how dare you, young man, be fearless in a way that varies or contrasts or conflicts with my way? You know, anyway, that's all I had to say about condescension.
You know what it is sometimes with the fear and the fear mongering, I realize, is telling somebody something that's fearful. They say you're fear mongering, but it's because you're scared of something, but it also entails them as well. So you want them to get on board, even though it's scary, so they can help you fight it. And you actually might even say that they need to help you, and you need to impart this onto them. So that can become an issue.
Good point. Sure.
So did we find out that Scott is entangled in unbelief?
That sounded yummy. Could you repeat that, Peter?
I don't think you have mentioned about Scott being entangled in unbelief.
Presumably was his answer, I think.
Oh. Okay, I missed it. Sorry.
Side chat.
I said basically tentatively yes.
Tentative, right? Thank you.
Are some atheist-minded men, are some believers in Christ Jesus occasionally double-minded?
What do you mean by double-minded?
I mean, like they believe and yet they doubt. Rational doubt.
I believe so, yeah. I think the spiritual response to that has generally been for people who remain in the faith is, I believe, help my unbelief. In other words, okay, I've got these struggles, and maybe if I don't resolve them now, you'll help me resolve them later. I think it's been the attitude a lot of people have had, that Christians who face doubt. But that's just from my past experience.
How about atheist-minded men who face doubt?
Well, you know, I think there are plenty that they would probably call themselves agnostics, or say, I think I'm more agnostic than atheist. But I think they kind of take the position, I don't believe what I've learned in church and through Bible study up to now. But I'm having my doubts. You know, I think there might be a God, or, you know, they might assign what I call just, you know, a percentage of probability to it that they find a bit enticing.
How do you calculate such a probability, Scott?
Well, with like a lot of things, like if some guy comes up to you and says, "Hey, I have some, I can get those dents out of the car for you pretty easy and pretty cheap, and do a great job for it." You kind of, through experience, through intuition, through knowing maybe about the material, you have some idea, whether it's not calculated with a algorithm or whatever. You have some idea of how much confidence you have that what they say is true. So I think that's a valid thing. But when you want to put a number to it, well, I don't know how you do that, because there are people who study probabilities and things that could tell you better. But I just think it's informally, that's how you do it. You weigh all the facts that you're aware of, and then come to some confidence level. Um, it's always going to be tentative. It's always going to be based on partial information, but you still come to your conclusions.
Well, do you think of it like if you have a large bucket in the room, you can't see into the bucket, and you're pulling out marbles, and you pull out 9 marbles in a row that are red marbles. You don't know how many marbles are in the bucket, just a huge bucket.
Right.
Do you put a probability on the next one that you're going to pull out? Can you do that?
Well, I think people do, but the actual probability may, you may fall into certain fallacies of thinking that that might lead you to a higher probability, or a lower probability than's warranted.
Yeah, because when I think of probability, don't you have to know the number involved, the total number, to make the probability work? If it's an unknown number, the probability is still open-ended, it seems to me.
I don't know enough about probabilities to dogmatically or emphatically, with a level of confidence, say yes or no.
Well,
there's different types of probability and statistics, and I'm just kind of going with a basic understanding of what's involved with that.
I think. Sorry, Scott, but I was just thinking about this as he was asking the question. I think the point is that, that bucket could be like infinitely large or close to it as imaginable. So that, so then it would be very difficult to predict, to put a number on it, I guess, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know the sample size, maybe. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, if you know all the dimensions or all the numbers within the set, then you can make a probability. But if you have an open end, in other words, you don't know how many are coming in or how far it goes, I don't think you can make an accurate probability. And I think people tend to make probabilities in faith-related ideas, like when we get back to the problem of induction. We never know that the future is going to be like the past, although we get into a pattern and we tend to have faith in it as though it's going to. But we can't actually put that in terms of probability because there's still the unknown at the forefront.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Remember when I said I had about 15 minutes before I had to go get ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so the time is up, guys.
Great.
I'm gonna subscribe to your channel, Jay.
Nice.
And I'd like to invite you guys to come by Answers in Atheism. We talk about all sorts of different things, and sometimes if I get mad, I curse, but and
Shit.
and things like that. And sometimes it will actually get it doesn't get sexual that much, but it will, and we don't apologize for that. But in deference, if knowing your particular traditions and things, I might even like curse less and not make no dirty comments if I know you're around. So
I can expect no bunhole humor.
I don't usually do bumhole humor.
I see.
I know that's just not something I've ever
and what's the difference between glib and Pollyanna? Maybe I'll save that for some other interaction. I know you have priorities, bro.
Right. Well,
maybe
Pollyanna is a unrealistic naivete. Glib is condescending arrogance or something like that. to some degree. So I think they're two different
I think glib
sets
means,
of meaning.
I think glib means to be able to speak well. That's what my understanding of it is.
I heard glib was kind of bubbly and
Oh, really? Okay.
superficially bubbly or inconsiderate of something that may merit more gravity. Yes, but interesting
Okay.
qualifications. Yeah.
Well, anyway, Scott, thank you very much.
Words are perfluent and voluble, but insincere and shallow.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Maybe it's kind of, maybe there's a little bit of idea of effervescence to it. But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily Pollyanna, but I could be wrong. I don't use the word Pollyanna much. I have seen the movie Pollyanna.
I was forgetting about that negative part that's included in the definition of glib.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, I got to go, guys. I'm going to do some knee time with my grandsons later. So, but really, I invite y'all come by Answers in Atheism, and we can have some discussions. The only problem is getting Mike to consistently do a show. No offense, Mike. I know you're listening, but anyway. So anyway, it was great talking to y'all, and I actually enjoyed talking to you, Tommy. So I think my first impression has been overcome.
Nice.
All right.
I like that.
Thanks, Scott.
Talk to y'all later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Tommy, why do you always have to be so condescending?
It's my nature, Peter.
Nature? Come on. Don't blame nature for that.
That's another thing that people in theological debates will confuse. They'll say, well, God gave me this nature, where they should be saying, I am who I am. And, they use this God gave me this nature like it's not who they are.
Yeah. I noticed that Scott has a courteous streak.
Scott's very nice. Yeah. Very gentlemanly.
That is, I consider that virtuous.
Yes.
And sincerely.
Yes.
Sincerely, a type of kindness.
Yes.
Yeah. I like that. Instantly confessing that, you may err, but.
I'm still not sure about the whole Mike Speed Jewish thing from Mike didn't ever really deny it in the chat as far as I could see.
The way he wrote that, he didn't find out until he was 12, made it sound like he realized at his bar mitzvah or something like that. Is that what you're thinking?
Yes.
Who brandished arrogance?
He became a man, and when he became a man, he knew what a Jew was, is what I. Yeah. But I don't know why it's so cryptic.
That's it. It was notable confessions, but
you're very perceptive to pick that up. You're very sensitive to confessions, apparently.
Well, I'm confessions about self-conceptualization. I don't know. What is he a man?
Oh, now he says he's not Jewish. Okay, well, there we go.
Oh, is he in the side chat?
Explain yourself, Tommy.
What? He's a Pole.
Oh,
okay. Or a hybrid.
Well, it's still.
I'm part ginger too. Yeah. Who brandished arrogance more authentically, me or this human being who claims to be a man? God knows. Answers in atheism.
That's Mike or Speed.
Mike doesn't seem too arrogant to me.
So I guess it would be me.
I mean, why are we comparing you guys' arrogance?
I was just asking because was Mike arrogant?
I mean,
I don't find you to be arrogant.
So. Confident then?
Confident, yes.
Well, may his confidence go unshaken.
But you definitely missed it with the whole. Apparently,
I mean, there's multiple ways to perceive things like that. So I'm just not choosing to go that direction right now that Tommy's forking in front of me.
which direction is that?
Making
Oh,
a choice of who's more arrogant and then
okay.
contemplating if something is deeper than. It's just not the contemplation for right now.
Right.
Or at least
Have
not
you
what I want to get
Have
into.
you ever heard the term cocky?
Of course, I
Yeah. You ever hear the Black Oak, Arkansas song, Getting Kind of Cocky? Tommy
I learned.
Aldridge on the drums.
I tell you what, anytime I get cocky or arrogant, it bites me back. I can't think of a time when it doesn't. There's a confession for you. But now at this point, I'm thankful for that because I can see the deeper meaning, the wisdom behind that. It's just like, that's just not the way to go. That's not the direction. No matter how confident you get, there's no need to be arrogant.
Well, humility's a strange thing, JG. Yeah.
One of my favorite lines in literature is the old man of the sea, and Santiago's battling that fish. And he says, if I make him think I am more man than I am, I will be.
That's like what steroid users might say.
But it's more psychological, right? It very much, I think it very much applies to sports. You know, if they think you're stronger than you really are, that's an advantage.
Oh, definitely.
Well, I found out recently that there's two kinds of adult male chickens. There's roosters and there's cocks.
Really?
That's what I heard. Yes. That, I guess each have their goals and their role to play. Whether one's in a rooster mood or in a cock mood or whatever. But I just thought I'd throw that in there as long as I was throwing out things about being cocky or arrogant or confident.
What do you think about your own cockiness, Tommy?
Well, is it humility to act cocky? Is that humility?
I doubt it unless you're looking for a reception or to receive something from the other person that's going to make you feel humble. Is that what you're getting at?
To brandish cockiness can be an offensive thing. Many of us feel very cocky, but we do hide it because it's very annoying to behave in a cocky manner, as I'm sure you have surmised.
Yeah, it fades too, right? Like you feel it and then it goes away. So if you utilize it, that drop down is even more painful when it goes away. You know what I mean? Like when you feel the energy and then you go, you know what? I'm not gonna take this on. First of all, I don't need it. And secondly, if I act out the cockiness, then the descent is going to be sharper when it falls.
When I was in my late teens, I was very cocky, and I went to an athletic event and I was very cocky, and the hometown kid beat me, and I was very upset for a long time. I mean, that would wake me up at night. But now I'm so happy that hometown kid beat that cocky jerk. So,
right.
What?
Yeah.
How could cockiness and humility be related?
Well, that's what I was saying. If you want to be humiliated, you can act cocky and get humiliated by the people you're talking to, because they're going to get defensive at your cockiness and then move to humiliate you.
Okay, that's one side effect of acting cocky.
It's going to breed
Yeah.
some humility from your adversaries who you act that out to.
Okay. Is humility self-effacement? Even internal self-effacement. Is humility confessing myself to be nothing more than a semi-retarded, semi-reformed booger eater?
Paul says that
that-
we should examine ourselves to see if we're in the faith
Yeah.
with sober judgment. So
Yeah.
no, I can't see that we're supposed to see ourselves as in the worst possible light. But I think that we, as I've said before, I think it's important to be mindful of our sinful condition.
Humility can bring thankfulness. It can, lack of humility can take away from thankfulness, you could say.
Yes.
Appreciation.
That's true.
Sometimes we get humbled by our situation, we get knocked down, and then we become more thankful as a direct effect of that. You start to see the things that you were taking for granted and overlooking because you were being cocky or too confident or arrogant. You get hit with a humble wave.
Yeah, I can't. Did you say there are advantages to being cocky?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't either, because
Yeah.
at least the definition of cocky I'm using, I don't see how there could be an advantage.
I mean, you could say, like, you could look at or compare it to something like lying, like, oh, lying or deception is disadvantageous, but it does have advantages, right? But there's still wisdom in knowing not to engage in it.
Right.
So with cockiness, though, you could say there are advantages like you spoke of, like acting that way in an athletic event.
But see, that's not what I would define as cockiness. I see that's what I was trying to drive at. I thought cockiness was a reckless, false confidence.
Well, you could even argue that you could display a false confidence in an adversary and get them to retire early or forfeit and say, wow, I didn't even have to step on the battlefield. I used
right. I guess
cockiness.
it is kind of like what I was saying with that quote. So yeah.
But some people would have to use that desperately in a situation where they thought they might get taken advantage of, so they flash a cockiness that scares people off, and it's like
Right.
making a bluff, right? That
Right.
works out. But if you start to rely on that, then it'll bite you back, I would say.
Yes,
Good point.
good point. Yeah, I agree with that.
And that's the thing about using deception or using arrogance and cockiness. You get dependent on it. You start to like the feel that it brings when it's successful. And then you lose track. You lose the essence of doing the right thing from going on the unguided path. And you become addicted to that, or you rely on that which is the wrong path, and you can't continue it, right? You can't go on the deceptive path and always make out. And you got to wonder, how far can you dig down the deceptive path and make it accommodate you in a positive way before it works against you. And that's where you see people get devastated, I think, who continually choose the deceptive path.
Yeah, I remember thinking, I could think back on times where I told these lies. I can't even imagine what I was thinking at that time. I mean, I guess I could kind of put together some advantages, but they seem so trivial compared to the lying. It just, I don't understand what my thinking was. I mean,
Yeah, that might be the pathology of the liar. You find advantages in it and utilize it in your life, and then you find yourself lying pathologically without any good reason. If you can detect that in yourself, that's a good marker to go, okay, I've got to step back. I've got to reverse this. But it's where you get pathological liars. They don't detect that, and they just start lying for no apparent reason.
I was driving, this was like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. And I'm driving with a fellow co-worker. We worked in the same general area, and we're going somewhere. And he's driving. He picks up his cell phone, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm at my desk." And I thought, my jaw dropped. Why? Why would you? And I was just, why would you do that? I mean, I could not see any huge advantage. I mean, if he lied to the police and we're hiding out, yeah, maybe, but there was no huge advantage to it. So maybe he was that kind of person, I guess.
Well, sometimes the spirit is showing you something in that situation. Like your partner's willingness to lie is showing you something that you need to see.
Yes. I mean, that made me think, that made me very uncomfortable with the person. And he also he cheated on his wife. It was that was just like one of the flags.
It's like the disappointment in your friend or your colleague when you see them lie in a situation so casually and just so smoothly that you're like, you lose a little bit for them. It doesn't even matter what it's about. You just witness the casual nature of the deception and something.
If we had been close friends or something, I could not let that go without asking him what his view on life is, but he was a coworker and we weren't very close, so
it makes it tough though, because you got to work next to people when you see that light, the casual way that people interact. Sometimes it makes it tough.
Yeah, relatively speaking, he was one of the better people in the office, which doesn't help.
Yeah, you try not to judge, but what are you going to do, right? You see things for a reason. You can make judgments on situations that can be helpful to the way you handle people from then on.
Yeah. But we see a lot of that, the senseless sinfulness in the world.
I tend to point that stuff out in situations. I get strangely confrontational. Like I might have said, like, why did you do that? Because
I wish I had that more.
It's painful. It's a painful way to go. I can tell you that. But
see, I should have confronted the guy in the car when he lied. I think. I really think that probably would have been the right thing to do. But that kind of confrontation. That's a pretty deep level of confrontation.
Well, yeah, you might have taken the right course in not doing that, and I might have done that, but there's a whole host of problems in doing that can occur that might not be worth it. So it's
right.
Hey, you don't really know until you do it. But for whatever reasons in my walk, I do it almost every time, and it actually is painful. Like I have to choose my interactions carefully because I rarely abstain from going there.
Yeah, I don't think you're overly confrontational, but I do notice that you don't mind, being confrontational.
It's like that's where the answers are, like because people don't typically ask those questions or point those things out. Like that's where so much is.
Right.
It's almost like there's this fruit there that people know it's right there, but they don't want to reach out and grab it because it's it's got some thorns by it. Just like, you know what, a few thorn pricks, that's fine. I'll still get the fruit.
It looks so good.
Yeah, draw a little blood perhaps, but something there, it's worth it. But yeah, sometimes I wish, or I consciously go, you know what, I need to abstain in certain situations because. Because you run out of friends just doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I bet you could. I'm still not exactly sure why Tommy pout quitted.
I know he pout quits all the time, but he gets away with it somehow, and it's time that we called him out.
He rarely gets called out on the pout quit.
Sorry, Tommy. I see the Aces stream went up, so maybe he's over there.
Oh, okay. You want to go over there?
Oh, yeah, we could. I think he's watching some golf over there. But yeah, true. We might go over there. Yeah, that'd be fine.
Alrighty. Well,
Yeah, if you
I'll
get
have
a chance to review this, and leave some
oh
comments,
yeah,
I'll take them.
yeah. I really need to. That's another thing. I really need to watch that again and then talk about it,
Yeah, cool.
which would be great.
Yeah, thanks for chiming in, Peter. We'll see you again.
All right, take care, Jay.
Take care. Thanks again, Mike, if you're there for the chat today. And Light Before the Tunnel, that's great that you came over here today. Very thankful for that. Hopefully, get to talk to you soon. If not, if you just come over in the side chat, that's great too. Very, very happy to see you. And that's going to do it for today. Thanks, Rhett and Hill. I saw you earlier. Good discussion, decent conversation. Thanks for all who are watching. Grace and peace to you. Bye-bye now.